is going to be James Lowery. And James Lowery II, he is a rancher up in the Sandhills, lives north of Burwell in Garfield County. He's a fifth generation rancher as a cow calf producer, utilizing native grassland for grazing and hay harvest. And James has served on the local school board and is an elder for the Grace Family Fellowship and has been serving on the fire department for 17 years. And James is going to talk to us a little bit about his kind of first experience with prescribed fire that I think it was this year or was it last year?
Yeah, it was in April of this year.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, James. Go ahead and take it.
All right. Well, hello to everybody from Burwell here, Burwell, Nebraska. I live north of Burwell, up here in the Sandhills. We're about 20 miles north, so we're on the northern end of the county. And we kind of started in on this. I wanted to do a burn on our place. Wasn't sure about it because, I mean, us Sandhillers, we really don't like burning up. You know, we see blowouts created real easily just by driving over it wrong, or if you just leave the cows in just a little bit too long, then you can start getting a whole bunch of blowouts and stuff like that if you mistreat your land. And so, but we've been also cutting trees, and that's been, you know, we sat here, we've been planting trees for 100 years, and my grandfather, he had a nursery and planting trees so we could have some trees to keep our cows behind, because that north wind does blow and takes a lot of snow. But that's caused us a lot of heartache on the other side. It seems like we've, with all the seed stock of those eastern cedars, has really been taken over, and we've been doing mechanical cutting and stuff and trying that, but it's just, we're falling so far behind. Some of it we didn't get right after it, probably we didn't know what that would look like in 15 years, or when we started seeing these little cedar trees showing up all over the place. And so it's you know, after the so we decided we probably better do something a little more drastic than just the mechanical cuts, and because it just seemed like we were breeding cedar trees instead of actually taking them out. So and so I did decide to do a controlled burn, but I wanted to do some studying on it. I wanted to go to some other controlled burns, see how other people ran theirs. And I'm on the local fire department, so I was able to volunteer to come over with the grass rig that I have, and I just usually take my son-in-law, and we'd go over and watch how they do it. They'd put us on a crew, and we'd start in on it, and it was interesting to try. I went to a couple before I decided I was going to do my own, and it was good experience because I got to actually experience three different prescribed burns before I did my own. Two of them from the same person. Another one was from even a different county with a different whole fire crew, which was kind of really interesting. The styles and difference that they did it in. Here in Garfield County, probably they do burns down in the canyons and stuff, where a little harder ground and stuff quite a bit, but not a lot up here in the Sandhills. And so the Burwell crew, they're a little more wilder with it. They can go a little faster, and I wasn't sure if I liked the full style of that. They just lay down the fire, and you put out the one side and let her go, and you get to the other side and create a really big head fire, and you killed trees. I mean, it does the job, but a little more out of control than I really liked. But I went over to our neighboring county over at Wheeler County, and did a controlled burn that Chad was part of there, and the Erickson crew was there, and they were helping with that, and that was interesting to go watch them do it. They did a lot more slower. They do a wet line and put down the fire, and they went real slow. And you know, it went slow enough. I was almost like, yeah, we could almost speed it up, but yet at the same time, they're real careful. There was a little piece that got away from us a little bit, but it was only about 10 acres or something like that. It wasn't much of anything, and had that under control. But it was towards the middle of the day there, where the relative humidity was definitely down, and the wind was pretty good at a pretty good take at that time. But at the same time, I liked how they did theirs too. So in a sense, I kind of combined the two, and it seemed like I was really pleased with the way our burn went. And that's the thing, Chad, I gotta thank Chad for getting me into it too. He has been a huge help, and with doing helping with my burn maps and get the planning of it, and just he's been a springboard for. I've been sitting there asking him questions all the time, how we do this, how we'd go about that, and how far I need to push in trees, and what that looks like. And also Sandales Task Force came in and really helped us out with the money things. It was kind of a little bit short notice because I noticed, because I was a little slow, and I didn't know how much preparation it takes, and how much time it takes to get some of these other agencies on board to help out with these things. And also the difficult thing is trying to get all our neighbors on board. Me and Scott were talking earlier. It's a little hard to tell sandhill. You can tell them something, a sandhill or something, but it's hard to get them to do anything about it. So we're pretty stubborn up here. So getting my neighbors on board, that's one of the things I would really went to heart to do. I called up all my neighbors, told them what I was doing. I wanted to give them maps and how we were going to burn it. And I asked them, I wanted them to come and be a part of it, just either to watch it or take part. I had actually one of my neighbors on my grass rig. He was doing some of the firing. A couple of the neighbors, I gave them torches and told them to light it up. And that way, if they came back and says, well, hey, you let things get away, I says, well, you were lighting the fire and I was putting it out. So I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, so that was some of it. So here, I'll get you some pictures of what we did. And it was down in our south place where we do summer pasture. It's choppy sand hills, and the bottoms on this pasture are kind of a silt pasture here. I'm going to share screen here, see if I can get all brought up. But this pasture, a little new at this. This is my second Zoom call, so there we go. All right, this is the burn that we did this spring. It was about 600 acres. I guess I dove into it first. Usually you want to do something small, but I guess if I need to get something done, I need to do a little bigger than small. So, but this year we did about 600 acres. This was the burn plan, but as you know, nothing ever goes to plan. So we didn't have an east wind. We had more of a southwest wind. So we had to gather over on the other side where those houses are on top. That's kind of a abandoned house, my grandfather's homestead there. He homesteaded that back in 1892, but right there on that corner is where we started. And what we did have for crew, had the Burwell Fire Department on it. A lot of the rural crew was on it, and some were neighbors and looking at maybe burning too. And I'm sure everybody was watching me how we were going to turn out. We had two deuces and deuce and a halves, and one had both about 1,000 gallons of water, and then we had two grass rigs on one side for a crew, and then we had one grass rig. I had another deuce and a half coming, but he had something come up, of course, and so we went ahead and followed up. We had 3 UTVs, and then we had several ATVs going around too, either lighting fire or watching the burn, driving up and down the road, or just making sure there's no spot fires behind us, which they rescued us a couple times. I mean, we had a couple spot off, wind blowing out of the west. It was spotting every once in a while on our east side there, and we only had, I think we had about a 20-foot little circle burn, and a guy with a UTV stopped it. And another one, we had just a little 10-foot spot that spotted, and we got that one put out with a UTV. And then we had a little bigger one, and we just cut trees over on next to this to the east, and so there were some bare spots, and we had probably about a 20-foot spot that got away. We had we continued to burn on. We didn't get carried away. We went slow and easy, and it turned out to be really good burn. This is kind of where we started, down in that corner. I don't know if you can see the pictures there. That's kind of where we started. We started laying down fire, and we were taking off in 2 different directions. I had a pretty good crew. They were careful about doing things, and it was this is where we started off anyway. And as we progressed, we laying down black line. And the humidity was a little higher at that time. It was around 26%, and so it wasn't burning great, but it was, it's taken off, and it was good to get started. That way it wasn't jumping over right off the bat. I've had to go to fires that it jumped the putting down the black line to start it, jumped and took off and went the other direction and burned about as much as they were going to burn that day, except in the opposite direction. So that has happened before, but things were going really well. I noticed that we had bigger trees on the place, and some were saying, well, that won't do so well. But as the day went on, the humidity went down and things started really burning really well. I was really pleased at how well it went. We're still laying down black lines about halfway through. We were already setting little head fires back inside of it, so we could get some real good burning done. And that's one thing I wish I'd had more guys laying down fire inside. We might next year maybe have a couple more guys with 4-wheelers and stuff laying down some fire, some of those small head fires, because it does produce a lot more, and it kills off a lot more trees while we're doing it. And we have, as you can see, we have some bigger trees in there. Some of it I've cut this territory 3 times with small, just clearing off small trees, and we cut on some of the bigger ones, but they just kind of keep coming back thicker and thicker. It was almost like a carpet out there of red cedars. And so this is kind of when we got done. This is the north side of it looking down. Those trees, all those trees are now dead and brown. It burned off the bottoms of them. This was kind of halfway through the crew that was on the north side, and there were some places that just burned the whole trees, everything up. And that was one thing that I learned is, trying to choose a really easy path to get around, especially in sand hills. You can't go up some hills. You can get yourself in a spot. And so I did choose a path. That was one of the things I learned from the other being on the other crews and stuff. So I did choose a lot of paths. I went outside the fence and inside the fence, but it was more paths that we could drive a pickup through, so we could keep an eye on the fire and stuff. See, this year it's from the west side, and you can see those trees really turn brown. It killed everything that was 6-7 feet tall and down. Just absolutely killed everything. And I tell you, every time I drive by when I'm checking pastures, you don't know how much pleasure that is to see all these dead trees, and that they're not producing more seeds, and it's really a pleasure to see these things. And my neighbors, they keep coming and checking on it. They come over and they look at it all the time, and they they're curious too to see how well it did, especially when we were burning quite a few bigger trees, because some of these were hardwood trees and stuff, but there's cedar trees behind it, and it devastated a lot of those trees. I got a spot right here. This is what it looked like in some areas, that we were getting enough of a head fire every little bit, and it was generating enough heat to just burn off those trees. I could see a cow now through those trees instead of losing a cow. Sometimes gathering cattle are a little tough out of those areas. And this is another spot. This was just thick. These are 20-foot, maybe bigger trees, and it just devastated that whole area. And we're going to come back through and after these get a little rotten, we're going to take I think a D9, and we'll see if we can't flatten that area, and we'll just run all the trees together and burn a pile. But one thing about it, we get rid of a lot. I'd say even with the bigger trees, we probably killed 85 to 90% of even our bigger trees, because it even put a lower line. I mean, you can see that that black area in there, those are all big 10, 20-foot trees, and there's places that just burned the whole thing out. Otherwise, this here is 2 weeks later in May. I came back and we took a few pictures, and you can see all the brown tree. I mean, those trees are dead, and there's more dying because you see some green. Some of those that we didn't even burn, but where the green is, we have. And this was 2 weeks after also. You can see the brown lines under those trees are continuing to die right now. And I think as a year or two goes by, there'll probably be most of them die. And so the seed stock will continue to die on it. So, and this was across there, it burned that whole band of trees across that valley. And this is what we're thinking about doing this next year. You can see on the bottom of the map is the 2020 burn. That's what we have burned. 2021, we're looking at burning the spring, only 300 acres, but it's kind of set up to do a really big burn 2 years from now. The 2022 over on your left side is what we're going to do this next spring. I think I got one of my neighbors convinced to go north from there, and we may have to 700 to 800 acres to burn together. And so that's going to be helpful. And then after we get done burning both sides of that, we're going to burn the thicker area, the bigger area in 2023. And those are bigger trees, but I got to do a lot of cutting and stuffing to catch them on fire. But we're going to start getting ahead of them. I'm going to do about a 7-year rotation burning, as far as I know. And who knows, I might get more addicted. We might be burning more even then. So I guess, and this is the CAD and stuff. I had gotten this kind of ready for me. This is some of the stuff we're prepping to do is for this next fire. But other than that, that's all I've got on those things. Does anybody have any questions?
We do have some questions for you. One of them is, other than the loss of trees, which is great, are there any other changes, say in forage/vegetation, that you've seen as a positive outcome from fire?
Well, I did, when I burned, I thought I'd get rid of more annuals than I did. I probably did get rid of quite a few. There were some weeds that did come back, some biennials that, it's tough to get rid of them. So I was a little disappointed on that part of it. But the thing is, the grass, it's kind of how I had a neighbor that's been burning Schweitzers over on the Calamus Lake there. And he said that if you come in in these sandhills, if you come in after you burn in about early June and really hit it hard with your cows and knock down that cool season grass, you can actually really help mature your warm season grasses, which is quite a bit of our sandhills are choppy sands and stuff. And so you can get a lot thicker stand of warm season grasses. And we did come in, I think I came in just about a week too late, maybe, with my cows, and we went ahead and grazed it. And but it really, all it was coming in late. And so I held up using that for during the last summer, but then within half a month or so of grass season, we were able to go in there and utilize that grass with the cows, and they really did like the grass. And it was great. It's easy to find the cows to get them out too. So every once in a while, it's quite a challenge to get them out of those trees. And it's getting back to where it used to be, where we could actually find them without any problems. So any other questions?
Yeah, that's like a bonus. The hide and seek of cows.
Yeah.
Is not an issue.
Well, I have stories.
We do have another question. This is a really good one. How would you suggest starting a discussion about using fire with landowners who state that their sandhill prairies are just too fragile for fire? That's something we often hear.
Well, I know that I know my father is, usually if there's a fire in sandhills, you go put it out. That's what it is. I mean, you're not starting fire. But I know that my neighbors, it helps. One of my neighbors is actually from Kansas, and they've done burnings and stuff, and that kind of helped. They weren't sure about sandhills, but after they seen mine, they're looking at doing theirs. And another neighbor on mine, he's never burned, never thought about burning, didn't really want to, but could see his land is covered so much, almost more than mine, that he sees that it's going to have to come to that. And he's actually started looking at going to burn here in a couple of years. And actually, when I had Chad up there, we were looking at things, and I had him join us, the neighbor, and we drove around, looked at our land, and then he says, "Hey, can you come look at ours?" So we spent another hour going over to his land and looking around at it, and it is about 150 acres he's looking at burning, and starting out that way, and they're cutting it right now, and then they're going to come back and burn in a couple of years, and probably doing it the right way. But me, I'm just trying to kill trees. Right now I'm in a desperate level of just killing everything we can, and what I want to do is produce in my neighbors and me, all kind of where all of us are okay with fire, that and that's the thing, getting them involved, even if they just sit there on a four-wheeler or just watch, run the lines, or just sit there and watch, see that, it's all right to do these things and kill these trees and get ahead of them, because it's almost impossible not to. And what I do is, when I have them on the fire line, I have them protect the area that's next to their place, that they do a really good job then of really doing a good job of looking up and down, but I think they could see the advantage of it, and especially as time goes on and we do a few more, and we're real careful not to let them get away, but sometimes, I'm sure they will a little bit, but I want them to, that's the thing is, I want to work with them. I tell them, hey, if you want to burn off of me to end of yours or whatever, it doesn't matter, that it'd be easier or whatever. And I think sharing information with them, give them the maps, get them used to the idea, I think it's helped. And then you doing it and having them come watch helps too. I think that really is probably the biggest help, is that so far for what I've had anyway. And so yeah, that, I don't know, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, building that core and then working out from, your area and your neighbors, and having everybody see that together is certainly helpful. Having that real life testimony from somebody in the Sandhills certainly helps all of us who are trying to kind of give that message out. We have another person that's asking, what is your return interval on grasses?
Oh, such as when do I turn in with cows, or is that?
I think that's what they're asking.
Probably fire return interval. Like, how often do you need to put fire on the ground to maintain?
Oh, okay. Well, some of it, what I looked at is where I have such a huge amount of large cedars and quite a bunch of small ones coming in. Some of it, I just need to cover that land. I've got about 4,000 acres in that area. And I have to do we're going to cover that. We're going to almost try to burn almost a section at a time. And so it's going to take about 7 to 8 years. And I figure by 7 years, there's going to be some more little trees coming up. But then see, once I get done with these big burns and, having to leave grass for a whole year, like a whole grazing season, I'll be able to do maintenance burns. I was talking to Chad about that. And these maintenance burns is all you do is you put your cows in, and within, maybe a month early, in October, 1st of October, so I'm come out just a little early, and you'll be able to do a maintenance burn and be right back in June. And so you don't hardly lose any grazing. You improve your grass quality, and the cows love it. And on top of that, and you'll want to go in with a little less, the first year, but boy, you don't lose as much as you think. Because that's what kept me from it, is I figured, yeah, fire's cheap, but the losing the grazing was really expensive. I mean, you lose, you could lose, almost $30,000 or more, 50,000 just in grazing. But what I'm looking at is you have to take some of the necessary costs, because it's going to cost you way more to cut all that stuff and then keep it down. That 50,000 is nothing to throw out a whole section of cedar trees. And in fact, it'd probably be even more than that. And so it's worth getting them done. So it's about 7 years. I think 7 or 8 years is what I'm looking at. Unless I start burning a lot faster, then I might be back within 5 5 or 6, but I don't know, about 7 years would be nice. Just kind of take out a section at a time, and they should help. But I mean, I got neighbors all over starting to look at burning, and they're starting to look at that. Some, they haven't told me about it, but I found out that they are, and that's okay. That's great. And if I could be a help in any way, that's thing is, we'll be there with a grass rig, or we'll be there to help out and maintain, or they can even burn off of our place, which is good if it gets onto our place. And that's the thing, if it burns into our place, it's, hey, that's just that many more trees dead. And that's kind of where we're at right now, where we have to be. So hopefully that answered the question anyway. So about 7 years, yeah.
Oh,
When
that's
we're gonna
great.
try.
I always say I like my cedar trees well done and my steak medium rare. So thanks for
Yes.
raising.
Brian, do we have time for one more quick one?
Yep, we got them.
And then probably have to move on. But just a quick question from someone who wants to know, when you knock down those trees and burn the pile, doesn't that make that area prone to blowouts?
What I'm looking at, the thing is that if I come in with like a D9 cat, and after those trees are rotten, they'll probably just break off. There won't be a tremendous amount of what you might say disturbance of the ground. It does help on that place there. It's got a silt bottom, but it's sandy, choppy sand hills, so it's changing into those canyon type areas, but yet the tops are soft. What you do is you smooth that out a little bit, and I think some of it is when you do it is important. I think it'll be something that you'll do if you do during the spring or some in the fall work, but you just don't want to leave something all winter. I think that's really, and that's why we're a little hesitant on burning winter burns, like maybe October or November burns and stuff. It's that one, I think for specific areas that might work, but when you burn in the spring, March and April and stuff, that it'll have regrowth, and you won't have the problems that you would. And plus, after you burn through those trees and you've killed those trees, grass is going to start growing underneath those trees. So really, the plant base is still there, and really all you're doing is just kind of taking out the trees, the shelled out trees that are there. And on these maintenance burns and stuff, you're still taking care of the little itty bitty trees that are going to turn into big trees. And so I believe that's going to work pretty good if you can just the time of year that you knock it off, and keep it smoothed up and stuff. So I believe that's where we're going to have, a lot of, because I haven't really had any blowouts come out from that. And that's those hills I burnt. If you remember looking at some of those hills, you can see a lot of gopher holes and different things like that. And there's sand there, but it did come back, and it was a dry spring too. I mean, May was a little dry for us, and it was drouthy, and we had a little rain in July, and then August throughout, we just didn't have any rain, and yet that came back, and the cows did pretty good on it. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, that's like a first of having a little bit of rain in the sandhills instead of having them be so full as they have been the last few years. So.
Oh yes, we've had plenty of rain in the last 2 years. I think we had 56 inches one year and 55 the next. So
Crazy.
It was nuts.
I think I just want to read this because I think there's a lot of folks that feel the same way about this. Hearing from landowners and ranchers on this conference is very refreshing and motivational. We really appreciate you coming on and giving your thoughts. You did a great job, and being willing to share your love of fire and your new love of fire and how it's helping your ranch is huge and really great for all of us to hear. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks, James. All right, let's